In my opinion, the NFL Hall of Fame is one of the more perfectly constructed Hall of Fames in all of the major sport leagues in the United States. Because in the NBA, it's too easy to get in. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame, almost everybody makes it. In the MLB, it feels like it's too hard to get in, where some years they don't even elect anybody to get into the Hall of Fame. I feel like the NFL is the perfect sweet spot, but it's still tough to make it, as there's some really good players like Hines Ward, Clay Matthews, Steve Smith Sr. that are not in the Hall of Fame that I think deserve to be in. And for today's video, we are going to look at every NFL team's most likely Hall of Famer that's on their current roster right now. And some teams have locks to make the Hall of Fame. Some teams have a player that, you know what, could make the Hall of Fame. They just need a couple more good years. And some players have nobody that's probably expected to make it to the Hall of Fame. So I had to take a rookie because you never know how their careers are going to go. So we're going to start out with an absolute lock. I believe if he retired today, he'd probably make it to the Hall of Fame as a 29-year-old, and that is Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. He may be having a down year to his standards, but he has just an insane resume for a 29-year-old in the National Football League. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler. He's been on 2 All-Pro teams. He's made it to 4 Super Bowls, including winning 3 of those already, and those being the 2 most recent ones, winning back-to-back ones. So he's got 3 Super Bowl MVPs. He's got 2 MVP awards as well, 1 in 2018 and 1 in 2022. A couple other top 5 MVP finishes as well. He's led the league in passing touchdowns on multiple occasions, led the league in passing yards once as well back in 2022. He won the 2018 Offensive Player of the Year award, and yeah, I know Mahomes hasn't been Mahomesing it too much this year, but I think it would be a fun discussion. Like, would Patrick Mahomes be a first ballot Hall of Famer if he retired right now? And honestly, I think so. For the Denver Broncos, it's a little bit more of a far-fetched idea because currently all their veterans, I don't think it's anybody that's going to be on their way to making it to the Hall of Fame. So I'm going to go with a young 24-year-old cornerback in Pat Surtain. This is Patrick Surtain's 4th year in the NFL. He's already made an All-Pro first team back in 2022. He had the draft pedigree as being the 9th overall pick back in the 2021 NFL draft. He's been a Pro Bowler in the last 2 years also. And this could be a big year for Pat Surtain's eventual Hall of Fame discussion, because this Defensive Player of the Year award in the 2024 season is wide open. I don't think TJ Watt is a lock to get this award, and it could go to a corner for the first time since Stephon Gilmore won it with the New England Patriots, because it's definitely not any of their skill position players right now. Bo Nix you could possibly go with because he's been a productive rookie, but that is just such a far-fetched idea. So I'm going to go with Pat Surtain, who's still young and has had a good career so far. For the Las Vegas Raiders, it would have been an easy discussion before the season started. You would have went with Devontae Adams, but now that Devontae is a New York Jet, it came down between 2 players. You could go with Brock Bowers because tight end, it could be an easier position to get in, especially if he explodes with one of the best receiving yard careers for a tight end, which is definitely possible the way the NFL is in current day and what we've seen from Brock Bowers' his rookie year. But I'm going to go with a defensive player, and I'm going to go with Max Crosby. Crosby was a 4th round pick, 106th overall back in the 2019 NFL draft. He finished runner-up in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting back in 2019, which definitely could have helped his resume. He didn't get any major awards in the 2020 season, but finished that year with 7 sacks. He did get All-Pro second team honors in 2021 and in 2023. He's also made it to 3 straight Pro Bowls as well. This year, he's probably not going to get on an All-Pro first or second team because his season was cut short due to injuries, but he tagged on 7.5 sacks this year. He's still 27 years old, and I feel like Max Crosby's game could age fairly well because he has been relatively healthy every year of his career up until this season. I hope he plays in more meaningful games. I don't know if he's ever going to win a Super Bowl in Vegas, and with the way the team is currently constructed, it may not be anytime soon, so I do wonder if he's going to finish his career as a Raider, but I definitely see the reasoning with going with Brock Bowers because he's already off to a great start and basically 1 for 1 in Hall of Fame season so far. The Chargers were an interesting one. I almost went with Justin Herbert, which definitely could be a logical pick just because he's a quarterback and he's been off to a great start in his career so far and is probably going to play for many more years, but I'm going to go with somebody on the defensive side of the field. I'm going to go with Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is 33 years old. He's going to be 34 years old at the start of next year's season, but he's made 8 Pro Bowlers. He's been a 3-time All-Pro first team member. He's been on All-Pro second team once as well. He was on the Hall of Fame All-2010s team. He was the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year winner. He's got 106 total sacks in his career, and if you look at Pro Football Reference's Hall of Fame monitor for outside linebackers, guys at the top, Lawrence Taylor, Derek Brooks, Shaq Ham, obviously Hall of Famers are going to be there at the top. He's not far behind them, and there's guys behind him in the Hall of Fame monitor that are in the Hall of Fame. So I do think there's a good chance Khalil Mack gets in. I don't know if he needs 1 or 2 more good years. I don't know if it's going to be on the first ballot or second ballot, but I do think Khalil Mack is the most likely Chargers Hall of Famer right now. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, I had a tough time picking between 3 players. It could even be 4 if Chris Boswell keeps this up. So the first guy I'm going to rule out, but could definitely get in, is Cam Hayward. He's had a very long career. I think one of the more underrated players throughout his career as well, because he was always more of an interior defensive lineman, and he was always overshadowed by Aaron Donald, and rightfully so. You could go with Russell Wilson, who I think is going to be an interesting case. I mean, if he wins a Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers, or at least one more in his career, yeah, he's probably going to get in, since he already has a Super Bowl championship under his belt with the Seattle Seahawks and has had many good years in the NFL. But I'm going to go with TJ Watt, because TJ Watt is still 30 years old. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler. He's a 4-time All-Pro first team member, and he also won the 2021 Defensive Player of the Year award. I thought he should have won last year, as he finished runner-up. He also finished runner-up in 2020 and finished 3rd in the voting in 2019. He's already got 108 career sacks, and I mentioned before, he's just 30 years old. If he gets another depoy this year, that may lock him up, but he's probably the Steelers' most likely Hall of Famer, unless his career just gets derailed by injuries like his brother, and I hope that's not the case. We're going to go over to Baltimore now, and like Pittsburgh, I have 3 guys to choose from. I was going to go with Derrick Henry, who's probably the last great running back from this generation, but if you just compare him to previous generations where they were running the ball a lot more, playing a little bit longer, it may be tough for Derrick Henry to make it on the first or second ballot, but if he keeps it up the way he's playing this year, he could get in. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is another pick. He's already got 2 MVP awards, which is going to help him out a ton. Obviously, if he can get a 3rd this year, that can help him out a ton, and then only a Super Bowl MVP will help him out even more. He just needs to get it done in the playoffs. I'm actually going to go with Justin Tucker, which may be kind of shocking, but I feel like he's going to make it to the Hall of Fame. I know he's having the worst year of his career, and his long career may be done. He's 35 years old, but he's made 7 Pro Bowls. He's a 5-time All-Pro first team member, 3-time All-Pro second team member. He won a Super Bowl with the Ravens before. He's the kicker on the Hall of Fame 2010s team, and he's got the highest field goal percentage at 89% out of anybody in NFL history. I do think Justin Tucker is pretty much a lock to make it when it's all said and done, unless he just plays like this for 5 more years and he just craters his field goal percentage. So Ravens fans, let me know, would you agree with Justin Tucker? For the Cincinnati Bengals, they don't really have like an elite offensive tackle of all time or anybody on the defensive side of the field right now that I think could get in. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson has been great over the last couple of years, but he probably needs to work on his Hall of Fame resume a little bit more. So I'm just going to go somebody that's 28 years old. I think he's going to have like the counting numbers, and it helps that he's a quarterback. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I mean, for what he's done so far, Jamar Chase could obviously be a logical pick here, but Joe Burrow is a 1-time Pro Bowler. He won the 2021 Comeback Player of the Year award. Obviously, he's going to be overshadowed in some awards just because he plays in the same conference as Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, but Joe Burrow did lead the Bengals to a Super Bowl in that 2021 season. And this year, he may have the best season in terms of stats out of any quarterback in the NFL. He's leading the NFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns, as well as passing yards per game. And he was a little bit older coming to the NFL as well, but I think Joe Burrow's game is going to age extremely well, especially if he's playing with Jamar Chase for the years to come. But I could also see the reasoning if you went with Chase for this idea as well. And for the Browns, this was an easy one. I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson. I'm just kidding. It's going to be Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett is 28 years old, and I've used the word overshadowing a lot, and that's kind of been the case. Well, Myles Garrett did win Defensive Player of the Year for the first time in his career last year. He was always overshadowed, it felt like, by TJ Watt, at least in the AFC North discussions. But Myles Garrett has been an absolute beast pretty much since he entered the NFL back in 2017 as the #1 overall pick. He's made it to 3 All-Pro first teams. He's made it to 2 All-Pro second teams. Like I mentioned last year, finally got his Defensive Player of the Year award, and he's 28 years old and has 99.5 career sacks. I feel like when it's all said and done, Myles Garrett will be a Hall of Famer. Now that Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce retired for the Eagles, you can't really pick those guys anymore. So you could go with Saquon Barkley. He's been great, and obviously he's still extremely young in this NFL, but we'll see about running back shelf lives. You could go with Jalen Hurts. You could go with A.J. Brown, but I'm going to go with Lane Johnson. It was a bad 2013 draft overall, especially if you look at those top 15 picks, but Lane Johnson at number 4 is probably one of the better picks in this whole draft. Lane Johnson has had a very long career in the NFL, 12 years. He's made it to 2 All-Pro first teams. He's made it to 2 All-Pro second teams. He's a Super Bowl champion with the Eagles back in 2017. He's made it to 5 Pro Bowls. And every single year, he's always at the discussions as one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. And I talked about TJ Watt being like one of the best defensive players of this generation. Well, Lane Johnson just did a phenomenal job against TJ Watt as a 34-year-old last weekend. So yeah, I think Lane Johnson is probably the most likely Eagles Hall of Famer right now. For the Giants, it's a crapshoot. You could go go with Dexter Lawrence. I feel like that's one guy you could go with, but he's already 27 years old. He's going to have to definitely pad on a little bit more to his Hall of Fame resume as time goes on. So I'm just going to go with a safe pick just because he's 21 years old, and I think he's had a good rookie year so far, and that's going to be Malik Neighbors. Neighbors was the 6th overall pick by the Giants back in the most recent draft in 2024. Through 12 games this year, he's got 90 catches for 901 yards and 4 touchdowns, and that's with Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, Tim Boyle, and Daniel Jones as his quarterbacks. And if they do add a better quarterback this offseason, that should just further help Malik Neighbors over the course of his career to have Hall of Fame resume numbers. I mean, the last wide receiver we saw kind of get off to this Hall of Fame pace to start off his career, Odell Beckham, didn't really work out in terms of him making it to the Hall of Fame. But I think it goes back to what I said before with Brock Bowers and the Raiders. Like, Neighbors is already 1 for 1 and having good years of his career, and he's 21 years old. And this 2024 like draft class in terms of receivers, when you talk about Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas, Lad McConkey, and some other guys, it could be one of the great wide receiver classes of this generation. Really easy one here for the Washington Commanders. It's Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner's had a 13-year NFL career where he's made it to the All-Pro first team 6 different times, All-Pro second team 3 different times. He finished 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting back in 2017, and he won a Super Bowl championship with the Seattle Seahawks. He was on the Hall of Fame All-2010 team, and we're just seeing this year the longevity of Bobby Wagner. Still one of the better inside linebackers in the NFL at the age of 34. I think when it's all said and done, Bobby Wagner will definitely be a Hall of Famer. Another lock to make it to the Hall of Fame is gotta be Zach Martin of the Dallas Cowboys. This was an easy choice as well. Throughout the 2010s, the Cowboys have the best offensive line in the NFL with DeMarco Murray and Ezekiel Elliott running behind those guys. And out of Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, I do believe Martin is the best one out of those Cowboys offensive linemen. He's a 9-time Pro Bowler. He's made it to 7 All-Pro first teams and 2 All-Pro second teams. He was on the Hall of Fame All-2010s teams, and he's probably the best guard, at least of my generation. And I do think when it's all said and done, like Bobby Wagner and some of these other guys I've talked about, Zach Martin is definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. So when you go like percentage points, I think it's 100% he's going to get in. We'll go over to New Orleans now, and I think their most likely candidate has to be Cam Jordan. When you're talking about longevity in today's modern NFL, Cam Jordan is right up there because we are in year number 14 of Cam Jordan, and it's pretty cool. He's been only a New Orleans Saint for his career. He was the 24th pick back in the 2011 NFL draft. That was the same draft that TJ Watt was drafted in, and TJ Watt hasn't played in a couple of years. So Cameron Jordan has the longevity on his side. He has 120 career sacks. He's an 8-time Pro Bowler. He was on the Hall of Fame All-2010s team as well. He only has 1 All-Pro first team. He's had multiple All-Pro second teams because it felt like Cam Jordan was never at the top of his position, and I do think he'll get in. I wasn't going to go with like Alvin Kamara. I think it's going to be tough for him to get in, or any other veterans, or definitely Chris Olave on this current Saints team. So I think Cam Jordan has the best odds. Here's a fun one, and I think he deserves to get in just because we're almost on pace for Mike Evans having 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons to start off his career. So that is going to be my pick for the Bucs. It is truly insane that Mike Evans has over 12,000 receiving yards, and he was drafted back in 2014. He's going to get really close to getting it this year. Obviously, he missed some time due to injury, and if he didn't get hurt, he was probably going to get over 1,000 yards guaranteed, and I really hope he does hit that mark again. He's made it to 5 different Pro Bowls, and he is a 1-time Super Bowl champion with the Bucs back in that 2020 season, and I think the longevity of Mike Evans is going to help him get in. I don't know if it's going to be first ballot. I don't know if it's going to be second ballot, but I believe Mike Evans will be a Hall of Famer. For the Atlanta Falcons, also have no idea. I don't know by the time this video comes out, is Kirk Cousins even going to be on this team anymore now that he's been benched for Michael Penix? I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be a Hall of Famer. He needs a ring to really help out his resume. There's nobody on the defense that I love either. I don't think Jesse Bates probably has the best chance. So I'm just going to go with their offensive lineman, Chris Lindstrom. I was either going to go with Lindstrom, maybe Drake London. I don't think Jake Matthews eventually gets in. Bijan Robinson is really tough to predict as well. So Lindstrom has already made it to 2 different Pro Bowls. He's been on the most recent All-Pro second teams the last 2 years. I think this year he could definitely get his first All-Pro first team of his career. And I just think for the Atlanta Falcons, it's really tough to pick anybody else. And I love this pick here for the Carolina Panthers because I'm going to go with my one and only punter in this video, Johnny Hekker. Yeah, I think Johnny Hekker deserves to be a Hall of Famer when he retires. He's 34 years old, and he's one of the best punters of all time. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler. He's a 4-time All-Pro member. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams a couple years ago, and his 4 Pro Bowls are tied for 3rd among punters of all time. His 6 All-Pros are 2nd among punters all time, only behind Shane Leckler. He's on the 2010 All-Decade team. Yeah, Johnny Hekker deserves to be in the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. First ballot too. For the Titans, it's really tough. I don't think they have any any future Hall of Famers on their roster right now. DeAndre Hopkins would have been an easy selection, but he got traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not going with Will Levis, not going with Calvin Ridley or Tony Pollard. You could maybe just say JC Latham. He's a rookie. You never know. He could have a Hall of Fame career. I'm just going to go with Jeffrey Simmons, their best player. Jeffrey Simmons definitely needs to work on his resume a little bit more throughout the next 10 years of his career if he wants to be in the Hall of Fame. He's made it to 2 All-Pro second teams in 2021 and in 2022. He's made it to 2 Pro Bowls. He's got 30 sacks in his career over the course of 81 games. And I just don't really think there's any other tight end that you could really pick. Unless like Nick Folk gets in as a kicker or Morgan Cox as a long snapper. We'll go over to Houston now, where you could talk about Danielle Hunter, who already pretty much has 100 sacks in his career. So he could definitely be on pace to get it. I think he needs to have a couple more double-digit sack seasons. Laramie Tunsil could also be an option at the offensive tackle spot. I'm just going to go with a safe pick here in CJ Stroud. I know Stroud hasn't had the greatest year too compared to his high expectations after year number 1, where he won the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. He won a playoff game with the Houston Texans. He was a Pro Bowler as well. He's still just 23 years old. I know it's been a down year for him, but Nico Collins got hurt. Stephon Diggs got hurt. Maybe they're going to make a change at their offensive coordinator position. So I'm just going to go with the long play here in CJ Stroud compared to Danielle Hunter. I don't know if this is the best pick for the Colts, but I'm pretty sure it is. It's going to be Quentin Nelson, who has made it to 3 All-Pro first teams in his career, as well as 6 Pro Bowls. He's also made it to 1 All-Pro second team as well. He's 28 years old, and I feel like he's been year in, year out, one of the best guards in the NFL. And as long as he has the longevity, I'm pretty sure he'll get in. For Jacksonville, oh man, I really have no idea for this team. Maybe Josh Hines Allen, but I just don't think he's got the good enough numbers right now. And unless he turns his career around to being like a top 2 edge rusher in the NFL, I think that's like almost a 0% chance he's going to get in. Maybe just go with Trevor Lawrence, and then maybe he could revert back to the golden child from his days at Clemson and the hype he had going into the 2021 NFL draft. But I'm just going to go with their stud rookie wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. I know it's the long play here, but Brian Thomas has had as good, if not better, of a rookie season than Malik Neighbors, who I went with as the New York Giants selection before. Throughout 14 games this year, Brian Thomas has 64 receptions for 956 yards and 8 touchdowns, and he's done that with Trevor Lawrence as well as Mac Jones. And he's still 22 years old, so yeah, I just think he's probably the more logical pick here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. When I was mapping this out too for the New York Jets, I'm like, wow, I could go with Devontae Adams, but should I just go with Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson or Sauce Gardner? Well, no, this is like the easiest one in this video. It's Aaron Rodgers. Duh. Tyron Smith could have been a fun option as well, but Aaron Rodgers has as good of a resume as anybody in the NFL. He's a 10-time Pro Bowler. He's made it to 4 All-Pro first teams. He's made it to 1 All-Pro second team. He has played 20 years in the NFL. He's won 4 MVP awards. He also won a Super Bowl with the Packers as well as Super Bowl MVP. He was on the Hall of Fame All-2010s team. He also has the lowest interception percentage of all time. He's got the highest QB rating of all time as well. And I mean, yeah, this is an absolute no-brainer for one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Over 62,000 passing yards in his career. For the New England Patriots, I gotta go with another rookie. There's nobody on the offensive side of the field, no offensive lineman, nobody on the defensive side of the field that I'm gonna go with. So I just gotta go with Drake May. Drake May's been a good rookie so far. I don't think he's been a great rookie. He was the 3rd overall pick in the 2024 draft. He's got about 2,000 passing yards on the season, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, but he does look like he could be a dual threat quarterback as well. He's got over 350 rushing yards this year, averaging around 8.5 yards per attempt. And it's just the upside play in Drake May. He's doing all this with a lackluster receiving core, not a good offensive line whatsoever. So maybe if that comes around to Drake May in the offseason, maybe they get T. Higgins or Ted McMillan. This could be the start of a Hall of Fame career for the next great quarterback in New England. For the Buffalo Bills, I could easily go with Josh Allen, especially if he gets an MVP award this year. He's definitely on his way to being a Hall of Famer, but I'm going to go with their 35-year-old edge rusher, Von Miller, because I do think Von Miller is going to be a Hall of Famer, even if he doesn't play another snap in the NFL. He's been on 3 All-Pro first teams. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year back in 2011. He does not have a Defensive Player of the Year award, which could come back and bite him. He's won 2 Super Bowls in his career, including winning Super Bowl MVP with the Denver Broncos. He's on the Hall of Fame All-2010s team. He's got over 127 sacks in his career, and I do think Von Miller will be a Hall of Famer, and maybe even first ballot as well. For the Miami Dolphins, you could go with Calais Campbell, obviously a ton of longevity with him as an edge rusher in this league and a defensive lineman, but I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill already has an elite resume for somebody that's 30 years old. He's made 5 All-Pro first teams, 8 Pro Bowls, and he did win a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs back in 2019. He's got over 10,000 receiving yards in his career, over 80 touchdowns as well, including one of the greatest receiving seasons we have seen in the 2020s, getting 1,799 receiving yards back in the 2023 season, as well as having 13 touchdowns that year. Hasn't been the greatest 2024 season for Tyreek Hill, but I think if Tua is going to be fully healthy next year, it should be all right for Tyreek in Miami, if he even is a Dolphin. The Seahawks is also a tough pick as well. You could go with one of their young guys. I'm just going to go with DK Metcalf. I think this is kind of a long shot, but he's 27 years old. He's made 2 Pro Bowls. He's got over 6,000 receiving yards in his career. He was an All-Pro on the second team back in 2020. I just don't love any other picks here. Like maybe you go with JSN just because he's a bunch of years younger than DK Metcalf. Maybe you go with Devon Witherspoon or somebody like that because it's definitely not Geno Smith. I'm not taking my chances on any of those running backs in Seattle. So let me know, Seahawks fans, who would you say is your most likely Hall of Famer on your team right now? Easy one here for the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford. And if Eli Manning gets in, I think Matthew Stafford definitely deserves to be a Hall of Famer. Stafford has played 16 years in the NFL, 12 with Detroit, now 4 with the Los Angeles Rams. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams back in the 2021 season. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler. He won the 2011 Comeback Player of the Year award. He's got over 59,000 passing yards in his career, over 370 touchdowns. Obviously didn't have too much career success in Detroit, but winning that Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams in 2021, I think solidified Matthew Stafford as a Hall of Famer, either first ballot or second ballot. I had 5 guys come to mind for the San Francisco 49ers. What if Kyle Juszczyk just gets in as the fullback? Because he has been one of the best fullbacks of this generation. I think Fred Warner is on good pace to being a Hall of Famer. I think Nick Bosa is on good pace as well. George Kittle at the tight end spot. I'm just going to go with Trent Williams. Trent Williams is 36 years old. He's made 3 All-Pro first teams each of the last 3 seasons. He's an All-Pro second team member. He's also made it to 11 Pro Bowls. He's played in over 180 games in his career, and he's like right there in the Pro Football Reference Hall of Fame monitor for offensive tackles. Maybe he needs 1 or 2 more good years. If he calls it quits after this year, maybe there's a chance he doesn't get in. So Niners fans as well, let me know who you guys would go with, because it's kind of like the opposite from Seattle. I think there's a bunch of different guys you could choose from here. And for the Arizona Cardinals, I don't love anybody on this team right now. I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. is having a convincing enough rookie season for me to pick him. I'm not going to go with like Budda Baker, or definitely not James Conner. So I'm just going to go with Kyler Murray. And I think Murray is somebody like Matthew Stafford. Like he's definitely going to need a Super Bowl championship in his career to be a Hall of Famer. He's made it to 2 Pro Bowls. He's 27 years old. He was the 2019 Offensive Rookie of the Year winner. He was the #1 overall pick by the Cardinals back in the 2019 draft. He's got over 18,000 passing yards across 79 games. And I think needs a lot of work to eventually be a Hall of Famer, but I just think he's the best Arizona Cardinals in terms of making the Hall of Fame in their careers right now. And I don't love any Green Bay Packers chances right now. Like, I'm not going to go with Josh Jacobs. I think in the modern NFL, it's going to be tough as a running back. You could go with Jair Alexander as a corner. So I guess no pun intended to when I said I didn't love any Green Bay Packers. I'm going to go with Jordan Love. And this is purely off just him being a quarterback. He's 26 years old. He got a late start behind Aaron Rodgers, similar to what Aaron Rodgers had being behind Brett Favre. This is the second year seeing Jordan Love as a full-time starter, and I think he's done a good job. The Packers are going to make the playoffs this year. They won a playoff game last year, beating the Dallas Cowboys on the road, and Jordan Love threw over 4,000 passing yards, and hopefully he just gets a little bit better as he's just becoming more and more as a full-time starter. We're going to be going into year 3 next year. He needs to work on a lot. He needs to make maybe a couple All-Pros, couple Pro Bowls, and definitely needs a Super Bowl championship. I just think he has a better chance, especially he's a quarterback, more than somebody like Jair Alexander as a corner or Josh Jacobs as a running back. I don't love any chances for the Chicago Bears either. I'm just going to go with someone that's had a really good career. I think he needs to really have like 1 or 2 more really good years on a different team, or maybe it's on the Bears next year, and that's going to be Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen definitely has a better chance than somebody like a Kevin Byard right now, and then maybe you really like Caleb Williams in the long term, and that would be a perfectly fine pick. As Keenan Allen, in 12 years in the NFL, 11 with the Chargers and now 1 with the Chicago Bears, has made it to 6 Pro Bowls. He did win the 2017 Comeback Player of the Year award. He was elite last year for the Chargers. He had 1,200 receiving yards, over 100 catches, which ended up being the 5th time he has done that in his career. He's got around 11,000 receiving yards and over 950 receptions and 65 touchdowns in his career, which is phenomenal for somebody that was a 3rd round pick back in the 2013 draft. But I do think Keenan Allen needs to work on his resume a little bit more to get in. Someone that is off to a great start for the Minnesota Vikings. He's 25 years old. It's Justin Jefferson. This was an easy pick, as this is now Justin Jefferson's 5th year in the NFL. NFL. He ended up winning the Offensive Player of the Year award back in 2022, All-Pro first team after the previous 2 years in 2020 as a rookie and 2021 as a sophomore, becoming an All-Pro second team member. In that Offensive Player of the Year season in 2022, he had 128 receptions for over 1,800 receiving yards, and he is on a great pace right now to eventually being a Hall of Famer, but he just needs to do it for about 8 to 10 more years. For the Detroit Lions, it could eventually be Jared Goff if he wins a Super Bowl with the Lions this year, which is just crazy to say. Could be a couple guys on the offensive line, most notably Penei Sewell, who's been off to a great start in his career, being one of the better first-round picks in that 2021 draft, which had a lot of variance. It could be Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's off to a great start in his career. I'm going to go with someone that's currently out for the year in Aiden Hutchinson. It's the long play here. Hutchinson is 24 years old. This is year 3 of his career, and he had 7.5 sacks across 5 games. He's got 28.5 sacks across 39 career games. He was a Pro Bowler last year. He did finish runner-up to Sauce Gardner in the Defensive Rookie of the Year voting back in 2022. But I think what I've just seen from Hutchinson so far, he's going to be one of the premier pass rushers in this league for a long, long time. And that's going to be my Lions pick. So that's going to be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you agreed or disagree with any of these, please let me know down below. And if you did enjoy, I'd appreciate you subscribing. A lot of you guys are not subscribed, so hit that subscribe button and drop a thumbs up if you did enjoy. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.